I'd like to call a meeting to order tonight. If everyone would rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you do roll call, please?
Councilmember Zerfing? Here. Councilmember Masters?
He's excused.
And he said he'd be here.
7:30 or 8.
Councilmember Cranlett?
Here.
Councilmember Benson?
Here.
Councilmember Pruitt?
Here.
Councilmember Hank?
Here.
And Mayor Fisher?
Here. Amendments to the agenda under presentations. There will be the Columbia Gorge Arts and Culture Alliance. That's the only change. Next is public hearing. There is none. Presentation is the proclamation to declare May 2011 Arts and Culture Month. Did anyone from the public wish to speak? Go ahead.
Good evening, all. I'd like to introduce you to May 2011 as Arts and Culture Month. From Troutdale, Oregon to Stevenson, Washington, from the Dalles to Goldendale, organizations and now Cascade lots are gearing up for the first Columbia Gorge Arts and Culture Discovery Month. It's presented by the Columbia Gorge Arts and Culture Alliance, and it's through the entire month of May. Both the governors Gregor and Kitzhauer have issued proclamations that this will be Columbia Gorge Arts and Culture Month. Well, many people outside of our region are unaware that we have so many talented artists and icons and events and now activities that will be going on all this month. It's a chance for non-residents to discover a treasure trove of fun, interesting and accessible arts and culture experience, and hopefully come spend a weekend or two this May with us. If you really want to know what's going on best, there's the Columbia Gorge Arts and Culture.com website, and that would be the best way to find out. Our own artists, hopefully, I know already Heather is going to participate and is quite thrilled about this. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will make a proclamation. Whereas arts and culture organizations are an important part of the economics of the Columbia Gorge, and whereas these organizations regularly provide enjoyment and educational opportunities to residents of our region, and to whereas they also draw tourists into our region to supplement our tourist offerings and can be an important tourism magnet in the shoulder months. Now, therefore, I, George Fisher, proclaim the month of May 2011 as Arts and Culture Month in the Columbia Gorge, in the Columbia River Gorge, and encourage residents to visit arts and culture venues and hospitality businesses to promote the venues and the special events to their customers to increase the enjoyment and the benefit that these organizations bring to our community. Signed today. Thank you. At this time, by the general public, any item of interest that is not going to be discussed on the agenda, committee reports or government officials can now be talked to or can talk about. Before we go into public comment, I will state that we are now open for public comment. and that all people will address the council as a whole. You will do so with respect for everyone on the council. When you come to the podium, you will first state your name and the reason why you are speaking to the council. If you're here with a group to make a comment, you need to pick one person to represent that group, and you will be given 5 minutes to speak. When each person has spoken, that will be the end of public comment and will be closed. Then the council will speak on the matter. There will be no interruptions from the public when the council is discussing a matter. This statement will be read before every time there is public comment so that everyone knows what the rules of council are. Okay? So at that time, is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will proceed on to discussions, declaration of potential conflicts of interest. Seeing none, we will go on to consent agenda. Item A is the approval of minutes, April 11th, 2011 council meeting. And then item B would be ratification of bills in the amount of $25,014.86. On the part of approval of the minutes, I noted, Kathy, after reading that I see no mention of the outbreak from Brad Lorang in the minutes, and was wondering if you could possibly go back and add those in.
Where was that at?
That was when we were discussing
The appointment of Don Benson to the...
right after the tourism appointment. I have nothing else to add about the minutes.
So we're going to pull the minutes from the approval, from the consent agenda?
That would be,
Okay.
That's what I understand.
that would be my understanding.
Okay.
And then the appointment to Tourism Committee, who...
I haven't put that in there because I figured we'd, actually I can do that too, because we can ratify them both at the same time, correct? Okay.
Who are you nominating?
Okay, so for the appointment of the Tourism Committee, I had one other person apply, Jessie Hartley. I talked to her on the phone. At this time, my appointment will be Don Benson.
Okay,
And
then I'd like to pull that from the consent agenda, please.
the appointment,
Yes. So we'll just be ratifying the bills.
Okay, I move to ratify the bills in the amount of $25,014.86.
66 cents. So 66 on the bills list.
Oh, it says 86.
I know.
There's a typo on my part then, so it's whatever's on the bills list.
Okay. $25,014.66.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the ratification of bills in the amount of $25,014.86.
66.
66.
Okay, mine's written wrong, I'm sorry.
Okay, they're all written wrong.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. So anyway, so now I go on to the appointment of the Tourism Committee.
Yeah, you can, and we
Yeah.
can have discussion.
So, is there any discussion?
I want to say that I am going to vote against this because we already have a person who is related to a counselor on the tourism committee, and this will put two people married to two counselors on the tourism committee, and I think we should be a little bit more expanded on that. It just concerns me.
Okay. It's been noted. Is there any other comments?
Can I just ask,
You can say whatever you want.
well, I wanted to ask, just because it said that she had a business, but I didn't know what the business was. So I was just
It was a
curious.
daycare
She had a daycare.
in Hood River. She had a daycare in
She
Hood
had a
River.
daycare.
Who are you talking about?
Jesse Hartley.
Oh.
And then Dawn is Caleb, correct?
So, is there any further discussion? None? My appointment still stands, so.
Do we need to vote to affirm his appointment?
It is on the consent agenda, so it
Well,
needs,
you pulled it, so it's an individual item.
okay, well, it's part of the consent agenda.
So, I need to
I
do a
guess it's
consent.
Consensus.
I didn't think you had to have a consent for an appointment.
We
I
all,
think council has to
Approved.
approve your appointment.
Oh, I see. Okay. So at this time, we'll take a consensus vote. Eva? Tom?
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'm gonna abstain.
Tiffany?
no,
Don?
Yes.
I say yes. Okay, so, next is unfinished business. There is none?
Did we pull the minutes out of there?
yes. We want it to reflect the outbreak.
So do we need to roll the minutes then, or that's, oh, we just pull it out?
Unless there was
Oh,
something
I
else.
mean-
we're gonna redo it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next is new business. Under item A, future activities of the position of the ordinance enforcement officer. It's now open for discussion. Was anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, it will be out to the council. We're open for discussion. Tiffany?
I think I would have, I don't know, I was wanting to see some cost in here too, and I guess that we just know that he costs $32,000, it costs $32,000 for the ordinance enforcement officer, is that?
That sounds about right. I'd have to get the
Okay.
budget this close.
And has any research been done to see how many other towns of 1,000 or less people that have an ordinance enforcement officer as well? I mean, to me, it seems that we're not gonna find very many small towns like ours that have an ordinance enforcement officer.
I can do the research, but no, I don't know the answer to the question.
Don?
Yeah, considering our financial constraints, it's my opinion that I personally don't feel we can afford this at this time. It's a lot of money, and for many years we did it other ways, and I personally think we can find ways to do it. And it is a part-time position, and I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate this position myself.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
Don? It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah,
Tom?
the question was, future activities of the position, so, I guess I take from that on, we've been given information on what that, position does do. And so I would assume from the question, we're asking what else that position can do, or is the question just, whether we're gonna have it or not? But I take it as as potential other things to make if we don't think the position's valuable enough, right now, is there anything we can do to make it more valuable? So I guess that's part of this discussion I was assuming we were gonna have here tonight. Yeah, same thing, I know and I don't know whether, the chicken and the egg type thing, I don't know if it's, obviously we've gotten information from our auditor that in several departments, including our general fund, that we're losing ground on our reserves. I guess from that, the budget committee is gonna be looking at discussions on what we need to do to take, to help with that. Obviously, one of the questions is gonna be is, because this comes from the general fund, is do we wanna have an ordinance officer in order to be able to meet that budget, or be able to fall within the parameters of what we have in the budget. So I don't know, I know we have a motion on the table, but I'm not sure whether we've had enough discussion, and I'm not sure whether there shouldn't be a discussion of for the budget committee. I don't, I'm good with entertaining a motion to make sure that this is one of the items that we look at in the budget committee, but I'm not sure if we've got to the point where this is one of the issues.
Okay.
And along with that, in the time that I've been here, I don't know how much discussion we've had about whether the value of this position. I think the discussion that we have had has been a pretty short discussion. It's been mostly gathering information from the enforcement officer, but not, I don't know if we've done enough discussion on it, on a round table of it. But anyway, for me, I would rather, I don't mind having discussion. I'm good, and I think it's appropriate to have a discussion, but for my end of it, I'd rather wait for it to be part of the budget process. And I don't mind yeah, go ahead.
I'll clarify my part. I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice to have it. And I kind of think it's unfair to the budget committee to dump all of this on it. If everyone feels comfortable that we're in a good financial situation, make it full-time. And I've said this for a long time. Everyone doesn't agree with me. I think we have some very serious financial problems. We either face them or we decide that everything is all right and we move on. This is just my opinion. We've got some pretty big debts that we haven't even talked about. If everyone feels comfortable that they're going to be taken care of, I'm perfectly happy. That's one person's opinion.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, and that's my, excuse me, and that's my argument. And my argument is the general fund is a fund that has lots of things in it. This is just one item in that fund. I don't think it would be appropriate to say, without knowing and looking at what's all in the general fund and prioritizing what you want to cut. This may come to the top as a priority, but I don't, to come in there right off the bat of the fund, not really knowing what's all in the fund and saying we're cutting this. I think that's, personally, I think it's better to, I understand your argument, I understand there's an issue, but I think this is something that should be part of looking at that whole fund. We may say, there may be, once we look at it, we may say, well, gee, man, we could cut that out over there and that over there and bring our fund into, because I don't know what's all in that thing. We can cut that, bring it into, and keep the ordinance. Or the ordinance might be, everything in that fund should be on the table. Right now, we're not putting everything, by doing this, you're not putting everything on the table. You're only putting one piece of the fund on the table, not knowing what's all in that fund.
Eva?
I think, I agree with what both of you guys are saying, actually. And, one of the things that I hate to do is, I hate to go in there and say, okay, well, you know, let's just get rid of it and we'll find some way to take care of it. Because it is important, and we have a responsibility, you know, to our citizens here who are even now currently having problems. If we all of a sudden get rid of it, who's going to take care of that? Because it isn't a like, it isn't a like thing, this is kind of, seems a little unorganized. And so I think that there's more value in it. I don't know if it's $32,000 value, I don't know if it's $10,000 value, but I hate to absolve the position without some discussion, like, Tom's talking about. And, so two things. One, organizing it and making it more streamlined, so if we were gonna keep it, finding the right value for it. And two, being conservative and being careful with our money. It's just, I just think we should be careful before we do anything.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, in looking at the ordinance enforcement position, that Sean gave us a presentation and discussed, you know, a lot of the things that he does, and so it's not my intent to try and say that the position doesn't do a lot of different things. But it's the ordinance enforcement position. That's the reason it exists. It's to enforce ordinances. So you can't really include the other stuff as part of that position, even though it's work that's done. And if you take the $32,000 and divide that into the number of ordinance enforcement complaints that are actually worked in the course of a year, it's incredibly expensive, incredibly expensive. Thousands of dollars for each complaint. I don't believe that we're in a position to be able to afford to spend thousands of dollars to write a letter to a landowner, or to pursue a landowner for weeds, or to get a car moved, or whatever. I brought this up the last meeting. I think if we could work out a program where we paid per enforcement action, that way we can control what it costs us to get an ordinance enforcement action actually worked. The way we have it now, we're just budgeting a set amount for it, and then however many get done in the course of a year, that's what gets done. So, you know, this program was designed kind of the way it would, I mean, haphazard, I believe. And I don't believe that we're getting the value out of that $32,000, especially in our current situation with the amount of debt that we're going to have to service in the next few years. So simply saying that this particular program isn't going to continue doesn't mean we can't design another program down the road where we can address how much money we're going to invest into a particular activity on a little more fine-tuned basis. You see what I'm getting at? Because, you know, if there's one or two ordinance actions a month, then that's between $3,000 and $1,500 per action. I just don't think we can afford that.
I can't see that.
You know, that's just my opinion, and especially if those, you know, we haven't really collected any penalties from people who don't follow the ordinances. So this is completely financed out of the general fund for the most part. So it's not self-supporting. It's not, in my estimation, the highest priority. And it's the way it's designed right now, I don't believe it's cost effective. I just can't imagine us paying that much money for other things that just don't happen frequently enough in order for us to afford them.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Well, have we come up with a way to pay for the shortfall in the general fund for the attorney bills and we've gone over, and we were supposed to come up with extra money from the general fund for the, city administrator contract and the,
That's not what we're talking about right now, Tiffany.
it's, well, okay.
Oh, I see what you're trying to say. Okay. Richard?
I think there's enough money in the general fund at this point that we could reprogram it when we can pay the bills. And I can bring that back to you at the next meeting if you want. I don't think we do have, we have a shortfall in terms of what we've budgeted mainly for the city attorney. That's probably run over, I don't know, 10, 15,000, but there is money in other areas that we can use. So the fund itself, I don't think is overrun. We had a beginning balance and some monies.
Tom?
Well, and again, that's part of my argument, is one, the city attorney is coming out of the general fund, like a certain amount comes out of the general fund, just as this comes out of the general fund. So the question could easily be, are we not spending too much for the attorney? And are we gonna lose our ordinance officer because possibly that end of it was being done, even at its cost, was being done right, and the city attorney side may not have been doing right, but we lost the positions. That's why I'm saying you gotta look at the whole thing to decide where you're at on it. And yes, I don't know what the expense is of, you brought up the expense of the things, and I agree that if you're looking strictly at money on it, then you have to do that to a certain extent. But then when you look at the whole program or your whole budget for that area, it's what are you getting for your money? And by taking that out of there, by having people who are gonna start balking on, apparently without a little nudge, balk on their garbage, people start to leave cars around, all these issues that he takes care of, we're gonna ask somebody else to do it, probably your highest paid, one of your higher paid people, in the past we've done administrator. So now you're asking your administrator because that's the same as budgeting, that's their time. So now their time is being spent, instead of paying this person at that salary, you're paying that person at that salary to go do the same things, because they're still gonna have to take care of garbage issues, they're still gonna have to take care of car issues, they're still gonna have to take care of the derelict houses and all that. And all I'm saying is, you need to have that discussion. You just can't say, here's the numbers, because somebody else is gonna do it. The town put that in there and created those ordinances because they wanted to dress their town up a little bit. They want to dress it up a little bit, and they're willing to put some money into it. Now, if it isn't working, but I don't think we can have all that discussion there right now. I think that in doing discussion, you need to look at things like that. If the ordinance officer isn't doing it, somebody's going to. And it may cost, like I said, it may cost you a bunch more money doing that. Because that person's time is going to be doing it. Now, what are they not going to do for you? You get in this whole snowball effect on it. And all I'm saying is you should look at those, you should look at those things in relation to the budget, which part of that is the attorney too.
Did you want to speak? Because I want to speak.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think one thing I just want to remind the council and everyone to realize that it's the council's responsibility to be fiscally responsible, okay? And I think the information has been out there long enough that at least we on the council know that we're not in the financial shape that we should be in. So one thing I'd like to point out is I know it's a difficult thing and everything else, but it's very difficult to be in a situation where you're being reactive instead of proactive. And especially when it's in a financial situation. If we're being proactive, then we're looking ahead and we're trying to take care of the situation. It means that we're doing it for the betterment of the community because we know that we're going to be in a financial situation later on. So part of it for me, it's very clear. I mean, if we don't act, all we're going to do is say, here, you take care of our mess. And it's only going to prolong it and multiply what we know is happening already, and that's that we have a financial deficit in the city fund. And so if we do nothing, then we're just as guilty as, you know, as going out and spending more money. I mean, it's not being responsible for that amount of money that's being spent when we know that we have bills that need to be paid. So, I mean, I have to kind of look at it that, you know, not that I want to necessarily get rid of the position, but in a financial situation, are you better off to make sure that you have the money, or is it better to spend the money and then go, oh no, we spent too much money? So for me, I have to think that it's my responsibility to be responsible to the community, is to try to look out for the community and do that in a forward-thinking manner. Whereas being in a reactive manner, it's already happened, you've already spent the money. So that's my feeling on this, because the budget committee shouldn't be, and this is another thing, the budget committee shouldn't have to bear the burden for everything negative that might happen. And who's to say that this situation won't change and it might become a better situation in the future? But I really feel that right now the council should be being proactive on this matter. Tom?
Well, again, from my side of it, there's people here that appear to me apparently to know more about what's in the budget than I do. And maybe that's my, you know, my fault on it. But we're still just taking one item, you know, an item out of that budget. And in my opinion, not look at the whole budget, because I don't know that whole budget. I mean, will you call it the budget committee doing it, or you call us doing it? That's, to me, to be proactive is to be part of it, is you take the whole thing and you look at the whole thing. You just don't come in and say, there's 32 grand, it's gone. You know, 32 grand, I don't think we're getting anything out of it. And because it costs the number, I agree with that. That number, we have to look at that number. And I haven't looked at that number close enough of whether, you know, of the value, you know, if it's, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for every instance. What value is that $2,000? One, it's taken from your budget, but two, what did it do? What did it do for your community? And we spend money all the time to gain. It doesn't like it's going everywhere, but it's gaining value in something. And that's my thing. My thing is that I don't know enough about the whole thing in here. I think we're looking at one thing, and that's.
Okay. Eva?
To me, that doesn't
I'm
come
sorry.
out as proactive. To me, that comes out as jump, because I don't know enough about it. That might be my fault, so.
Eva?
Yeah, this is a really tough thing for me to think about, because, I think, you know, some money guru said at one point in time, your goal, you want to live below your means, but enough to keep you happy. And so, the only thing why I don't like to make just a quick decision on it is that if we've just put some money out for tourism here lately, and tourism is, you know, a beautification kind of thing, it all goes hand in hand, we're trying to bring people in, but then if your ordinances fall down, I was here before when the position was brought up, and, you know, there were some things that were pretty icky. So if you have stuff that, you know, makes it the city where it's not looking as good, then you're kind of fighting that. So that's just one little thought that I have. And, so, but then here comes a question. Kevin was talking about being able to redo a position. Can you do the position within the, like, can we refine it now? Or do you have to get rid position and come up with a separate system like what you're talking about?
It would have to be a different thing. That we have, the policy now is that we have a position that we pay X number of hours per week, regardless of whether there's complaints or not. And that would, I was thinking more of like a contract type situation where we could pay someone to go out and investigate particular ordinance infractions. Because, you see one way, if there's no complaints in a month, we still have to pay an employee because they worked that month. But if there was no complaints for a month, then we wouldn't have any money going out unless there was an action. It's more of a complaint-driven expenditure as opposed to just a set expenditure.
And it kind of sounds like this position isn't really a position that is meant to make money, right? Can I kind of look at Sean? Sean, do you have some information about that? Is it usually something that is, it's not really money-driven, correct?
No, the position was designed for was to get compliance. And that was, court costs, like I said last week, court costs are factored in there. But, I've used it, one or two times since I've been here for 7 years, so, well, 5 years, so. But, and money driven, it's not, but the job was designed for compliance, to get compliance.
Tom?
So same thing on there. I'm not saying I'm not opposed to dropping the position. I'm opposed to not looking at the whole thing. I still think that the budget should be looked at. And then when you look at it, you look at everything there, including your attorney, everything that comes out of the general fund. There's a lot of things that come out of the general fund. And everything comes out of it, and you go, and unfortunately, and that's what you're stuck with, unfortunately, when you are losing money, you've got to look at something, and you got to go, okay, here's the whole pie. And of that whole pie, that piece of the pie is more important than that piece of the pie. That pie's got to go. But it looks to me like we just pull a piece of the pie out, not look at the whole pie and say, that one's going. And I think you have to look at the whole pie to make your decision.
Don?
Tom, I think the reason that the mayor had the accountants look at our funds is to determine that. And that's exactly what they've said. Our funds, every year, they're going down, down, down.
Yes.
And we have not even addressed the debts that we have to start paying. Haven't even addressed it. So I don't understand how you can feel. The budget is going to take about 2 years to finish if we have to look at everything and try to figure out this. I don't like to say that we have to do without anything. But my decision to even bring this up, I'm not saying he hasn't done a good job. I'm not saying we don't need it. But I think it's one position that is a part-time position. It's sad that we have to even think about doing away with it. But we have to do away with something.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, I'm just explaining.
I don't disagree with it. All I'm saying
But
is,
that's
should we look at the whole
Okay.
Well, it's
general fund
been-
budget and decide?
we just had it looked at.
Okay, there's most,
I'd just like to, we all got the code enforcement monthly activity report, and for the public who hasn't seen this, it gives 88 total violations cited for last year. Of those, 57 were fire permits, so actual violations were 31. And as Kevin said, that's almost $1,000 a citation. That's paying a lot.
okay, there's a motion on the floor. It was moved by Don Haight to eliminate the position, seconded by Tiffany Pruitt. All those in favor? Want to take a roll call vote? Eva? Tom?
No.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
George?
Yes, Sean?
Now, this is budgeted for next year, or is it eliminated today?
We need to discuss that.
Has to be discussed, I guess.
We'll have to discuss that right now because that wasn't part of the motion.
Well, because it says future on the thing, so I'm thinking, we're already budgeted this year, and I've got stuff that I've got working on,
I
so.
don't think so.
I guess it's back open for discussion with the council, whether or not it's immediate or it's going to be at the end of the budget year. Eva?
My thought would be that, Rich has a lot of things on his plate, and that's probably where some of it would go to, and if we have things that are open that we were meeting for April, May, June, talking a couple months, possible, my idea would be at least keep that so that we can wrap some of those up.
Tom?
I would agree. to
Okay.
Keep it going until we can catch things up here.
Kevin?
We're talking about, what, $6,000? Boy, I'm kind of conflicted. I think that Sean deserves some notice.
Yeah.
You know, he's been a good employee for the city, and I don't think it would be right to kind of leave him hanging, so to speak. I would say 30 days, I think would be the kind of the middle ground.
I agree with that.
Tom? Okay, I agree with 30 days as well. So it'll be effective in 30 days, Sean. Okay,
I'm sorry, can I just get something clarified?
Yeah.
When are you gonna give the public time to speak on matters before you vote on them like that?
I asked for public comment in the beginning when
But you're not allowed to talk about anything that's on the agenda.
no, I asked for public comment when I opened it up.
Oh, at the very beginning.
At the very beginning, I asked for public comment.
All right.
So, and I'll do that every time.
Okay.
So, next is the approval of resolution number 1209, amending sections of the personal handbook adopted by resolution number 1041. At this time, Richard, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the next two items, the 1995 charter, ordinance 150, and the resolution that adopted the handbook raised several questions, and I've gone back through them. In terms of the ordinance 150, all I did is merely change the dates, so it was a correct charter. What, so that was current. In the actual personnel manual, the changes I made were to make it clear that the city administrator was the budget officer, not the finance officer. That I used the same hiring and firing terminology, that it was not the city administrator, it was solely the council. And the third part was, I deleted the residency section, and I want to clarify something about that. I talked to this, because this ties to another item on the agenda. I talked to the city attorney, and he said that you can require residency, and that because it's in the employee handbook, it would not apply to a contract employee like a city attorney or a public works superintendent that you're contracted with. So they would not, right now the employee handbook says that the city administrator, the public works superintendent have to be a resident of the city within 6 months, or other officials that you so designate. If you hire a public works superintendent under contract, they are by definition not an employee, like I am at the moment.
I thought that, I remember one time, and it may have been in the port, that you could, it was discussed at the port, that an employee, that they couldn't say they had to live here, but they say would have to be able to travel here in a certain length of time. Do you remember something like that?
That's actually at the city. It was, they had changed it to a 20-minute time span to be able to take care of emergency situations.
But they couldn't say you had to live within the city limits or something, wasn't that? Did I
Well,
miss it?
what we were told in the past is you can say it, but it would be, if somebody wanted to fight it,
Be challenged.
would be a hard.
That's how I understood it.
I think that's what we were told.
Well, the city attorney, I asked him that directly. He said that you could require residency of an employee, and that it didn't have to apply, but it wouldn't apply to a contract employee, because it was, a contract person, because it was an employee handbook only for employees. So that's what he told me. So the last part, in terms of what the changes, the other changes I made, I think, are good ones. The last one, I don't think you need to make, given the situation. Well, it depends on whether you want to have the two questions are interlinked, because do you want to have a public works I'm not asking you to answer this at the moment. Do you want to have a public works superintendent under contract or as an employee? That decision is affected by this residency requirement.
Any discussion from the council?
Might want to do a hearing.
Do you want the public to
Oh,
discuss
I'm
it
sorry.
first?
Would anyone from the public wish to speak now on the Resolution 1209 and amending Ordinance 150? If so, you may speak now. Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Anyone from the council wish to speak on this matter? Kevin?
We're gonna have a separate discussion on ordinance 150.
Yes, they're listed separately. I just wanted to
Okay, I just wanted
talk
to
to
make sure.
them, because when you had the discussion, they were all kind of linked together, but yes.
Personally, I would prefer to delete section 3 and retain the residency requirement. Maybe with the caveat that we allow exceptions
I think that's,
to be flexible, you know what I mean? Because there may be a certain instance where it does fit, where someone lives right outside the city limits, you know, where we would be interested and it would be a hardship on them and they're close enough and so on and so forth. But I think as a general rule, I actually like the idea of having someone in particular positions be part of the community. I think it's important. If you're in a position of authority or greater responsibility, you're being compensated more for it, and I want those people to be part of our community.
That's in the handbook.
yeah,
Kathy?
Mayor Fisher wanted to, I heard what Councilor Vincent
it's
said.
actually right here.
But the old section said 20 minutes. I mean, are you saying something different than that? If you were to
Well-
change it, it would be something different than that?
You might, the deleted section, is if you look at the track changes, the wording's right here.
Over at the far right of the,
Yeah.
Next page.
Okay, I'm looking at this part.
it actually says page 30 on the bottom. That's what was in the section originally.
And that was what I was saying I would like to retain.
Oh, I thought,
I was saying
okay.
delete section 3 on the resolution 1209.
It does say unless a specific waiver is granted by the council.
Okay, all right.
So I think that was what the point
So
was.
sorry I wasn't clear, but this, I'm talking
I
about
just
this
wanna make sure.
one here, yeah. So I would like to retain that particular requirement, because I think there's enough flexibility there, and again, it kind of keeps the money we're spending at home too, so to speak.
I agree with it. I like it. We can do it.
Have that option of, waiver or anything.
Right. You gotta speak up, Eva.
I agree.
Okay. So then,
So you want to make a motion?
is there a motion on the floor to,
So, is there any other discussion on this resolution 1209?
I think that was the only thing that was really a point of discussion, unless somebody else has a point that they want to bring out, but.
So I would move to adopt resolution 1209 with the exception of deleting section 3, where it says amendment to section B, employee classification and definitions. The paragraph under residency requirements shall be deleted.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Kevin Benson and seconded by Don Haight to not eliminate, correct?
To remove section
To
3
remove
on
section
Oh,
the
to remove section 3,
on the
okay,
resolution.
on section 3. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
So the next one's 150. On ordinance 150, I misspoke. I changed the two dates from 1956, the charter of 1956, to the charter of 1995. And at the very end, I deleted a section where it says, "The administrator shall sit with the city council at all meetings thereof and at all meetings of the committees of the city council." And what I'm suggesting is that the city administrator will sit at all city council meetings, but not necessarily all committees. In other words, planning commission, historic preservation, tourism, what else? Arts, I mean,
Right.
right now, this position has to literally attend every committee meeting that exists or will ever exist. I think it's simple enough to have a person attend all the council meetings, and if you want them to do something, you just tell them to do it.
Invite them.
Well, you could invite them, I guess.
Okay. At this time, does anyone from the public have any public comment about ordinance 150? Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Council comments.
I just have a
Tiffany?
question. On the very end, it still says passed by the council and approved by the mayor May 13th, 1968. We're leaving that date in?
Okay,
Is that's the original date?
Okay, can I just explain?
Okay.
Normally, as you know, I
Yeah, I
personally
know.
hate to do amendments.
I know.
But in order to make just those changes, that is the only change. So it would be,
Okay,
we're gonna amend it. So
okay,
that actually all needs to stay
all right.
in there, except the little things that we
In other
changed.
words, this ordinance goes away?
No.
No, this ordinance
No.
stays,
Just
which
stays?
is to the
Just the way-
amendments, all the
just the
different
way it
amendments
is.
that have been made.
Oh, okay, great, great.
Why?
What? Yep, and
Because that became
I'm
an
just
issue.
asking for clarification,
Okay,
because we're
this-
gonna have a new ordinance number. So, how is there any benefit to not just rewriting the whole ordinance and having it be ordinance number 411?
Okay, Richard, City Administrator, City Administrator Price and I had a discussion about, I really did think the ordinance should be changed, a whole new ordinance. So if you were gonna change the ordinance, you can ask Rich, we spent some time discussing this, but, so let's say at the top, how it says, an ordinance establishing the office of city administrator. I was gonna change all that to say, we would be establishing his duties. But it was decided that it should stay this and be an amendment.
But that's, maybe I'm confused, which is totally possible. My understanding was that ordinance 411 replaces ordinance 150, therefore 150
No,
stays.
411 makes just those amendments.
It
Okay.
modifies it, but is another
But-
ordinance in and of itself.
But if you wanted another ordinance, to me, it would be,
Okay.
you know, we wouldn't be establishing the office, that was done in 1968. So it would actually be something along the lines, I kind of started one. Basically would be more the duty part of that ordinance.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Kevin?
So, and I think that part is really irrelevant now anyway, because the Charter of 1995 actually refers to the office of the city administrator. So I think when this ordinance was initially passed, maybe that was important to establish that position. It's not an issue anymore. The charter speaks to that. So we don't need an ordinance establishing the office of the city administrator. We do need, I believe, an ordinance that delineates the powers, authorities, and responsibilities of the city administrator. And I do disagree with adding another ordinance on top of 150. Let's start from scratch.
It is
Let's write a new one. We can use the same language that we like, you know, that we want out of the old one. We could copy it verbatim if we really wanted to. But my opinion is that we need to start fresh, write it out, and do it the right way. And I just had a couple more things while I have the floor. I also would like to see this new ordinance contain a statement that this ordinance is the overriding, final, whatever, statement as to the responsibilities of the office of the city administrator, to where there's not the confusion that's existed for the last couple of years as to, well, this modifies it and that modifies it and blah, blah, blah. Let's make it clean, let's make it precise, and let's say in it that this is why this exists, and this is the final word. On the attendance to the meetings, I would suggest that the city administrator will attend meetings as directed by the council. It seems like if we did want him to attend a particular, I mean, it's another way of saying exactly the same thing.
Right.
But again, I believe that the 150 or 411 or whatever it's going to be should be generic enough to allow the council to direct its employee. So if a future council wants him to attend different meetings or whatever it is, they should have the ability to do that without going through the process of modifying the ordinance every 2 years when a new council is seated. And then my final thing on this is I have a little bit of an issue with the statement in 150 if it was to be transferred to 411, and that is the right to participate in all discussion. Again, I think the authorities and responsibilities should be determined by the council. I don't know of any other ordinance that specifies the right of each individual council person to participate in all discussions. So I don't really agree with that statement being in there. Obviously, the position exists to give us input and advice and so on and so forth, so we do want to hear from the person. But to establish a right in the ordinance, I don't think is proper. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Tom?
I agree with all that. I'm, you know, in this thing here where you have 68, you have some of these other dates in here, that is what was happening to us, is the councils will come in and go, well, geez, 68, you guys did this in 68, this was going on 68, we need to change it. What's going on now, suggested that we bring this up to date. That's what I was in favor of, bringing it up to date to say, we're going with the 95 charter. The charter's our charter, everything else doesn't make it, we go from the charter. And any other dates in there other than that charter date are not necessary. The date that we did it and the date of the charter is only need to be there. And the changes that Kevin suggested there, I'm totally favorable.
Okay, there's no other discussion?
I would just like to be last after council, if I could.
Okay, go ahead. Or I was gonna,
I think Eva's good.
Eva?
I just have one question, I'm just thinking this through. In when we're talking about the right, I agree, I don't like that word. However, the person that's your city administrator in a lot of ways is your person that knows the most information, so.
Speaking.
The people, the person that is your city administrator kind of has the most, they know a lot about the information, right? We have them going and do so. So, I'm just playing devil advocate here, what if we had a council that didn't want to hear the city administrator at all? Maybe the people do, do you see what I'm saying? So, is there another wording that says that it does say on there that we want the participation, but I agree, I don't really like the word right.
Well,
Right isn't there.
I would counter that with, the city administrator works for the council. He doesn't work for the citizens. He works directly for the council, at the will of the council. And the citizens don't have the ability to hire or fire or discipline or do anything else to the city administrator. It's simply the council. So if the council doesn't want him to talk, then he shouldn't be talking. I mean, that's the way it works when you're an employee of someone and they give you direction to do something. I think you should do it. I think that particular statement creates confusion as to the council's ability to say, okay, well, that's enough discussion, Mr. Hypothetical City Administrator. We're ready to make a decision. And I believe the way it is now, the person could continue to discuss because he has the right to discuss stuff.
Right, I don't agree with that, I don't like that. But I think that it's also kind of being seamless with the citizens. I don't know if I'm saying that well, but in being kind of seamless, you know.
But you got to kind of remember the situation. He's here to help us. And so, I mean, it's like at times, you know, I automatically turn to him to read things that I know that he's involved in. And so we're going to delegate. He's already has a lot of the authority already. We're going to delegate that authority to him anyway. So it's not that he's not going to be involved. It's just trying to take away a situation that, in that word, maybe it should say, has the ability, or, yes, Don?
To participate
And
in
I
discussion.
think it's just a different way to define the line of command. The city manager's gonna have it anyway, and if he's smart enough, he knows how to do it, but it has to somehow define the line of command, really.
The thing that's really confusing about this whole ordinance is that, I agree with you about the thing, that the ordinance seemed really confusing about the dates and all that stuff. We're leaving all of these holes. So I guess that was my thing, is like just trying to make sure that we can just get it right and have this fresh one that kind of makes
Okay,
it adaptable, but isn't, I agree, no, that's right.
So,
Appreciate it.
I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to say it, and then you can tell me if I can or not. So, we'd like to direct Richard to set up the revisions to the ordinance as Kevin described. So if we could do a consensus vote, unless there's more
I
comment.
think Kathy wanted to say something before we.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, well, I guess I just wanted to say, when we were looking at the minutes last time, there was kind of specific things that were said, which were dates, and Mr. Carson, I don't remember what else, but dates and something. So that was one of the reasons is that was done.
Mhm.
And whenever I started thinking how I was thinking, I thought I was overdoing it, especially after reading the minutes. So that was one reason that we just stopped where we were. The second thing was ordinances are law. We've always ran the ordinances through the attorney, so I would just like to know that we have permission to do that once we get it written up. And maybe if you want to take a look at it first to make sure that we're somebody.
Well, what I'm thinking is what should happen, is I'm thinking that we've now came back with another line of revisions to this, that those revisions need to be worked up between you and Richard, and then they need to be brought back to the council for final approval.
Okay,
And then
just
at
to look
final
at it, not to vote on it, just to discuss it, not vote on
On the next time.
Yeah,
it. All right.
yeah, I think that's a pretty good.
I think that's the way it should be. And then if everybody agrees with that, we'll do a consensus vote. Eva? Tom? Kevin?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Yes.
Don? Myself, yes. So if you'll do that for us, we'd appreciate it.
Got it.
Okay. So now, we will go next to approval of RFP for city attorney services. Richard and Kathy, have we received any RFPs?
Well,
I don't
Well,
think
we haven't gone out.
Send
This,
it
this
out.
is a question to you, basically. Is this RFP work for you? And my suggestion was that
I
we
see.
go out to, we go through the League of Oregon Cities and the Oregon State Bar in terms, we can buy an electronic mailing address that we could put on a postcard, for that matter. It is going out to that list of attorneys and interested parties, okay, and I was gonna limit it to Clackamas, Multnomah, Hood River, and Multnomah. So the question is,
That was Wasco.
I'm sorry.
Multnomah.
yeah, with Wasco, right. So the question is, that mailing list, those counties, you want more, those counties, you want other mailing lists?
I do have a question. Have we discussed this with our current attorney? Does he know that we're doing
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yeah, he asked me if I thought it would be advisable for him to submit for the RFP, and I told him, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Kevin.
How about Skamania County as part of the, because multiple attorneys are certified in both Oregon and
Both
Washington,
states.
especially ones that live right on the border.
And we did get the email, and we're gonna actually put it in the Canadian Pioneer and Hood River News as far as publishing a legal notice.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to get it as part of
I
that.
forgot about that. Because we have to do notice, I sent out a later email that said we could do it in the Hood River News and Skamania paper.
I just wanted to get it to be part of the
Yes,
record is all.
yes.
So-
Okay.
Closer we can get them, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the county seat, right? The county seat.
Be nice to have somebody local do it once. Could ever find somebody, huh?
And then you know, last week I brought up the question about what the relationship is. Okay, go ahead.
I forgot to ask if anybody from the public wished to speak on the RFP for a new attorney service. Anyone care? No? Then we'll go to council comment. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay,
Sorry.
so last week I said that I wanted to discuss, you know, what the relationship is of the attorney with the city staff. In here, I saw some things, although I'm having trouble finding it right now, that I questioned the relationship of the staff with the attorney.
Yep, I remember that and went back in, kind of like the same discussion we had about 150 in terms of defining roles. And there's some commentary in the council procedures manual in terms of duties, and there's some commentary, I think, maybe in the employee handbook, but there wasn't, those were kind of the results of resolutions, and they were pretty vague, to tell you the truth. I didn't think it was very directed in terms of thou shalt and shalt not. It was just kind of that there's, you know, that the city attorney was here to advise you as a council and to work with staff, but that wasn't, I didn't get much more out of it.
Are you looking at the scope of work under number 11?
Sorry, number 11.
Yeah, but the only thing is under number one, under scope of work, well, I guess that, it's a little, provide legal advice for counsel, services, training, consultant, opinions to the city administrator, city council, commissions, committees, and all levels of city government. So that's a little, I guess that's what he does.
I wasn't sure, though, if the councilor was talking about the legally prescribed relationship within the ordinance and the resolutions as opposed to this RFP.
I see.
I don't know,
You don't know?
question.
Kevin has his hand up. George?
Pardon me, Kevin?
I believe that by ordinance, the city attorney works for the city council. I'm pretty certain that's the standard relationship. It's the same as the city administrator.
Right.
He's actually hired by the council. He works for the council. And actually, Mr. Jordan made that statement that he works for the council, but with the city administrator. That's a direct quote from
Right.
Andy. I'm not sure what we're trying to get to. Is it whether staff other than the city administrator has the authority to directly contact the city attorney, or because I think it also would fall within spending authority too, because it is spending city funds to contact the city attorney.
Right, well, and I think the reason why this question came up was because of the, taking out of taxes, redirecting. When we set up the interim city administrator, we set it up as a contracted employee. Then the attorney called and said, no, you can't do that. You have to take out taxes. And so I think we just lost some, we lost some authority in there. I'm not really, because if I want to contact the attorney, I have to have a consensus of you all to be able to contact the attorney like that. I mean.
Actually, I happened to be in Mr. Carson's office when the attorney actually called him to give him, and I think he was just trying to be proactive. I think he saw a problem that he thought was developing, and his opinion was what it was, and my personal opinion is that he acted appropriately in that situation. I think he had a responsibility to tell us if he disagreed, but I think it was a little bit after the fact, I thought. But
So, number 12 says performs other legal services and tasks as assigned by the city administrator. So, does the city administrator have that kind of access to the city attorney without?
I believe that he does. I don't see how they really could operate outside of that. And he also has a fiscal responsibility, budget-wise, the city administrator does, to ensure that he's not using or abusing it.
And last year, we saw that went way out of control, so
and
where did we,
that was irresponsible.
where did we lose that control?
I think it was irresponsible.
Can I input here? Okay, so let's get back to, is there any changes to this RFP that we want to make to try to get another lawyer firm to give us a quote for lawyer services? Okay, is there?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so take a consensus vote. Eva? Tom?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes, myself. So, it looks good. Go ahead.
What about disclaiming it too?
Right,
Yeah, you'll,
and not Multnomah twice.
Yeah, Multnomah, please. They'll probably already charge us enough.
okay. Next is approval of contract with Dave Griffin for the Public Works Superintendent. Everybody's got a copy of Dave's contract.
Public comment first.
Does anybody,
It came separately.
Yeah.
I got it out of my box. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Maybe one.
You emailed it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I looked at it online and responded.
Yeah, we put it in the boxes and emailed it, so.
So if nobody has it, maybe we should go to break so everybody can read it.
yeah, let's move for a 5-minute break, and I can make copies for you guys if you want a copy. Okay, we're going to take a break.
You need a copy. Yeah.
My email's been working.
Ready? You ready? Thank you. Okay. We will now open the floor to public comment on the Consulting Public Works Superintendent Agreement. Do you have anything that you'd like to say? No? Okay. We will go on to council comments.
I just have a question, and I emailed this to Richard earlier. Are we not gonna have the same problem with this as we had with your contract, according to the attorney? Has he seen this? Because, I mean, he will be using our equipment, he'll be.
He's seen it, I've talked to him about it. The way that this contractor, when you read through it, he actually cites ORS and legal requirements that define an independent contractor from an employee. So he did a good job of defining himself as a contractor, which in my contract that I didn't write. Sorry, I should let it go. Didn't do that. So yes, and he won't be here 8 hours a day.
Right.
You know,
But,
5 days a week. He'll be here certain days, certain times, and so anyway, I asked the attorney said it's fine.
But he will be using our equipment.
Well, yeah, but there's still a fine line there someplace in terms of, he has an established record as an independent contractor. We have already hired him as an independent contractor, whereas, say, in my background, I was actually working as a consultant for another company who was, doing deductions and all that for me, so I wasn't totally independent.
Okay.
So anyway,
Isn't this kind of like the sewer, guy that comes for the sewer in a way?
yeah, this gentleman already does our water treatment as under contract.
So,
And we're basically expanding his duties.
in essence, the other thing that, initially he's looking at, and I know this doesn't really state it here in the contract, but initially he's looking at, he'll be here a little bit more starting out to get things in order and getting everything up and running and, get a handle on what's going on for the whole public works position in its entirety. But then he'll probably be going back to 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, and as the need arises. So there's a good possibility that Richard and I talked to him, and that it would probably only be $40,000 a year or less. So I think, just so you have a rough understanding of what we're looking at financially, and
That's total cost.
total cost. And he supplies, which he already has on his existing contract, he is already licensed and bonded. So those issues would be taken care of.
And fiscally, that's less probably than half than is budgeted now, because he would not be PERS as an independent contractor. And he would take care of his own withholding.
So his hourly looks up there pretty well in comparison to most people, but of that hourly, he's paying his own taxes and everything, so it'd be less than what that would be, a quarter
Correct.
off that lease
Right.
anyway, or a third off that,
Right.
is what, if you were paying something. Yeah, that's my thing on it, is keeping an eye on, is basically, this is, the compensation is pretty open-ended. Now, he's gonna come down here and do his thing, and he's gonna work the hours he needs to work to do his thing, so it leaves it pretty open-ended into potentially, pile up some hours.
Well, and that's
your job.
Exactly.
That's your job.
Exactly. It's like the city attorney and the county engineer.
Yeah.
It's the job of the city administrator to manage those hours and those dollars.
Now,
Yeah.
Tom, what we could do, we can still make adjustments to
Not to
this.
exceed so many hours, or.
Yeah, we could make some work
Or
that
dollars.
it couldn't exceed those hours without the approval of the administrator. Yes, Kevin?
Section 21
Section 21.
A, the hours of the position are flexible and varied and shall average between 8 and 20 hours per week unless agreed on by amendment or during special circumstances by email. So it establishes
It is,
that
oh, okay.
8 to 20 hours a week is what the expected thing, and if it's gonna be outside that, there needs to be an agreement, so.
So then
it's
it's
basically-
already in there, yeah.
Good.
Good point.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
Tiffany?
Okay, so I do have a question on this. Are, so does the Public Works that's here, do we have enough help here? Because we won't have one person here all the time now. What is,
Well, there's a couple things. One is, there's enough savings in the position itself to really create a new utility worker position. So you could really go from having 3 people to 3.5 people because of the savings on it. I mean, that's an alternative. You don't have to do anything. You
yeah.
could leave it with the 2 that are here and see how it works out. Or you could bring in the 2 that are here and bring in people part-time because they have seasonal. It's like, when it snows a lot, or, they have different seasonal issues they have to take care of with the systems. That's not every day. So there's several alternatives that we could use.
And one of the things too, just to keep in mind, is this summer as we get started and as the Cascade Meadows Senior Housing Project gets started, there's going to be needed additional manpower up there to do that work that's going to be required. And so this really allows us flexibility to get an additional person to help with that.
temporary?
Right. Or it could be a permanent person too, whatever the council decides. But
And that could come out of the budget process.
It'd still be cheaper.
and still be cheaper than what we're spending out
Yep.
every year.
And
So
meet the legal
we're
obligations.
still saving money. Pardon me?
And meet the legal obligations.
Correct.
Yes, he's required to have all the necessary certifications in water and sewer as superintendent.
So I would move to approve the consulting public works superintendent agreement with Swing and Cascade Logs and, gosh, what is his name on here? David Griffin,
Right.
Rock Ranch Enterprises.
Right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consulting public works superintendent agreement with David Griffin. All those in favor?
Did you have anything to discuss on it?
Not right now,
We got a
no,
motion
but
on
I
that.
just apologize for walking in late.
Okay.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes.
Does Lance want to state why? Do you want to state
No,
why?
not right now.
Fire station trailer discussion.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the disposition of the fire station modular unit.
This was raised by it was a discussion of the council. I looked into it. The 2 options would be to move it someplace else and use it, or to sell it. To move it is about $1,500 to $2,000. It was purchased in 2004 at $24,000, so, your guess is as good as mine at what it would sell for today. If you sold it, then I would assume you would sell it to somebody and they would also pay the cost of moving it away. So that would, whatever you would net out of that, that's your choice.
How much would it cost to move it again?
About $1,500 to $2,500. We had, that's within this area, yeah. If you moved it from here to wherever, it could be a lot more expensive, and that whoever bought it would have to factor that into the purchase price. But just the in-city move was around $2,000.
Tom?
And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong on as far as it was, put in a place that it really wasn't zoned for. And if we move, I know we had discussions of moving it out to the new fire hall, and would it be zoned, are we zoned for it to be able to be out there? As I understand, you can't have a single wide or a mobile home on the first layer, first level of commercial properties.
Wasn't aware of that.
Well, there is a process for, I just been through this for the last 3 days, for accessory buildings in a commercial area. And it depends on the use of the building, in terms of what an accessory use is. But it would have to go through site plan review, get a development permit.
The accessory wouldn't be a livable place though. It'd be a place maybe possibly do business out of, but not living.
I don't really know, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't checked into that. All I know is it was being thought about to be moved down to the new fire station to provide a residence for kind of interns that would come at different, trainees that would come at different times. They would come and then they would go. And that was some time ago, so I have not looked into the land use question.
Any comment from the council? Tom?
Just because it is our responsibility right now. It's been our responsibility for a long time. And going down and looking at it, it looks terrible.
It does.
And I fear we move it out to a facility that we just put $2 million into, and it turns into, and those buildings wear anyway, they lose value. But with that said, I hate to lose something the city's put $24,000 into that, I mean, it looks bad, but I think it can be cleaned up and can be cleaned up and used. I would sure like to at least have some people kick around some ideas of what before we put it up for, before we got rid of it for almost nothing, what's going to happen to you. Is there a value for it in the town for somebody?
Kevin?
I would suggest if it, $2,000 to move it is a lot of money to just to move it. I think we should spend $2,000 cleaning up the fire hall, painting this building including, get it looking nice, more saleable. If we sell the building, that's where I think this particular unit really comes into play, because I believe the downtown plan doesn't allow residences on the first story, irregardless of whether it's a single wide or anything else. So I think we'd have more flexibility if we invested that money, the $2,000, into making the whole property look better. I think with some paint and some attention, it will look okay where it's at until we sell the building.
And then get rid of it.
If the buyer wants to keep it, they can keep it. It's a non-conforming a non-conforming thing. They're not going to be able to use it for a rental or anything else. I think we've already established that. But if they have some other purpose, accessory building, which Mr. Carson was speaking to, it may add value to that property. It's hard. I think it's hard to say right now, but I think the fire hall property right now is an eyesore in town. I think that's really what needs some attention, especially we're going into our tourist season. I think that's something that we need to address right away, is get that thing spruced up and cleaned out and in marketable condition.
I think we still have a generator back there too.
Yeah, it's out back. There's a lot of stuff there. I'm kind of in agreement with Kevin. I think the moving of the trailer is an expense that we shouldn't do. Number one, we're never going to get the money back out of the trailer just by moving it. And I agree with Kevin too that we should go down and pressure wash and paint that building. And I think that's something that could be done within the city. Even if we had to, we could even possibly do a community deal, come down and paint the old fire hall, you know. It's not a big deal to paint a fire hall white and, you know, and clean it up to make it more acceptable for everybody. And I agree with that statement. I think that's a good statement because we'd spend that much money just moving it, whereas I think for $2,000 we could easily paint that, probably paint it for less than that. So, Tiffany?
Can we see about selling it and just getting rid of it and having somebody take it off of our hands? I mean, or do we want that to be part of the sale of the fire hall and to have to manage how it's used? I mean,
I think if you were thinking of going that way, I think that we could probably go out and get an estimate of what a mobile modular company for a unit like that, in that condition, what it would be worth in today's market. And that would give us a better idea. If it's not worth, if they're only going to say it's worth $6,000, then it's probably not worth our time to mess with.
and I agree with that, but
So would
at
you
this point,
like,
we don't know, yeah,
I can take
consensus.
consensus to have Richard check in to see what the actual value would be of that. Kevin?
And also I see we're marketing the fire engine on our city website. I mean, that certainly wouldn't be an expensive thing to take a picture of it and throw it up there as well with the description and see if there's any interest, Craigslist or whatever. You know,
Yeah. We could do that
we
as
would need
well.
the value first,
but-
obviously, also, too.
So anyway, consensus vote, do you agree? Eva? Lance?
Yeah, I think we ought to find out how much it's worth, right? I mean, as opposed to spending $2,000, maybe selling it can help pay for some needed improvements as well, but only if we know how much it costs.
Sure. Tom?
I agree.
Kevin?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes,
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look into that, Richard,
All right.
we'd appreciate it. Okay. So on the same thing then, did we want to take a consensus vote for looking into painting and cleaning up and painting the fire station at the same time? Any comment from the council?
I would like to see that happen. The sooner the better.
do we still have that for sale? We still have it up for sale, is it being marketed at
The
all?
fire station?
Yeah,
I don't think so, is it?
It was up for sale. I don't, no, we don't have it actively being marketed at the moment, which is another question
Yeah, I
in
think we
terms
need to-
of, you know, do you want me to go out and find somebody to, you know, to broker it, put it on the market, get it listed, et cetera?
I think we need to decide what to do with it, the property as a whole. I
Right.
mean, are we gonna sell it, are we gonna keep it, what are we gonna do with it? We haven't had this discussion for a while, and things have changed.
I think it was abandoned.
Yeah.
We should not look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, whatever you do, you have to,
We have to clean
We
it
gotta
up
clean it
one
up.
way or the other,
we
so
gotta get that clean.
let's
That's a priority.
let's talk about that and take a consensus vote on that, whether or not we're going to paint, to go forward to clean and paint the fire station, the old fire
That would be
station.
using city staff to,
I'd say city staff, or we could also even try to, if you have a work party for the community on a weekend to go down and paint it.
Do we
City
want
staff could pressure wash it.
Yeah, we've got the equipment to do the pressure washing and get it prepped.
I think we could do it reasonably inexpensive. Yes, Kevin?
and do we want to put a dollar amount on it? If the city public works prepped it, would hiring a contractor to come in and paint it be reasonable, you know?
Well, I have the authority up to 2,500 to handle that kind of expenditure.
Yeah, I was
I don't
just
know if you
wondering
wanna- if you
whether
wanna
the council
spend
was
that.
willing to go that route. I think Public Works probably has a lot on their plate right now, as far as expecting them to paint it.
Well, no, that's why I said them to pressure wash it and
Yeah,
then do a
but if
community paint thing.
If they prepped it and explore both alternatives, community
yeah,
painting
Right.
it, how much it costs to have a contractor paint it,
Right.
And set a dollar amount, what we're willing to invest in improving the property,
Right.
whether it's
Lot more suitable.
seal coating the parking lot and the approach and replacing, there's a broken window and some other things.
Isn't
Oh, was there?
there still a lot of stuff inside?
I don't know. I haven't
I think
actually,
that's part of it, is to get all this stuff picked up too.
so,
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff outside, I know.
Yeah.
okay. So then, we want Richard to check on getting a price up to $2,500 to clean up the outside,
To paint.
to paint.
We'll do the pressure washing, and then the question is, do you want to paint it, seal coat it?
Right.
And I get prices on that.
How far $2,500 would go, I guess, to
Right.
clean it up,
Okay.
paint it up.
The
Okay.
stuff that's there is city property, so it either has to be surplused and gotten rid of, or, I mean, something needs to happen with the
Take
property that's still there.
inventory.
That's not our,
Okay, so we'll put this
But it
on
does need to be
Richard's
taken
plate
care
to try to make it happen within the $2,500 range.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll come back to you.
yeah.
We gotta
Okay.
increase value, whatever it takes to, if maybe just sweep it down, take the weeds or whatever, but we gotta do something to increase the value of that.
and if not increase the value, at least make it look better, which eventually also increase the value.
Which will attract people's, at least their attention during the
Yeah.
tourist season.
All right, then we'll go ahead and take a consensus vote. Eva? Lance?
As I understand it, it's to have Mr. Carson look into improvements to the exterior of the fire hall. Yes.
Correct. Tom? Lance? I mean,
Yes.
Kevin?
You only get one.
Yes.
Two votes.
Can we clarify, are we giving him direction to use city staff immediately to clean up the building?
He can,
Take care of the surplus property that's laying around and begin the process of cleaning the building up? That's not a direct expenditure thing.
Right, but I wouldn't want to pressure wash it until we had the painter lined up.
And I'm not talking about
Yeah,
pressure washing,
no,
I'm
just
talking about the cleanup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whether weed eating and that sort of stuff.
I can make that part of my due diligence, is to go down and figure out with the staff what
Okay.
we're gonna do with the stuff that's there.
I just don't think we need to have further direction
Sure.
for that step.
okay, so I don't need to go back through and,
I just wanted to
Have a
clarify
vote
that. Is
for
that,
that?
is that what? That was.
do you agree with, I'll go back over the,
Yeah, clean her up.
okay. Do you agree with the cleanup and finding out the cost?
Yeah, I think we should look at our options, but definitely as a community, I've seen people plant flowers and stuff, they're willing to help out with some of the yard stuff and take less time, so I guess I'm maybe looking at that.
Okay.
Some options.
You're still good with what was said?
Yeah, as far as the
Okay.
extra stuff, I trust the staff
Okay.
to make the necessary decisions. I don't think council has to give that kind of
All right.
direction.
Then you're good? Kevin, you're good?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Don? Myself, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
And now, what I didn't hear as part of the discussion was you don't want me to market it, you just want me to clean it up.
And then we need to discuss what we're
Then
gonna
you will
do with
discuss
it,
that
yeah,
later.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's not for sale now.
Not
It
yet.
hasn't been on the market.
It
for a
was,
while.
but I don't think we have a listing with a broker, and I don't think it's in the multiple listing service or anything else.
The city was trying to sell it, I think, themselves, weren't they?
At one time,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, we will move on to mayor and council comments. Eva? Anything to say? Lance?
Not at this time.
Tom?
Was down for the dedication of the bronzes. Good, great turnout down there, and then everybody had to jump in when the thunderstorm hit, and
Hold her down.
they did a great job there too.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, it was very dramatic. It was very dramatic. Yeah, it was, yeah, what a great, piece of art that we have in our,
Yeah,
art and culture all in one, right there. What a great piece.
they're really neat. Kevin?
I would like to say how nice I thought the sculpture turned out. It's beautiful. It's actually a really amazing piece of art. Very nice. I think it's an addition to our town. Also like to point out that Mr. Haight handed me a CGRA announcement, and I hadn't seen this yet, but I did already get a reservation for this particular CGRA event at my campground, so I know the sailors do bring at least one reservation to town.
Good.
Tiffany?
I have a few things. I wanted to tell the Public Works thank you today because they were working out in the pouring down, pelting hail / rain / wind. It was just absolutely miserable. My whole road just looked like a running river going down the hill, and they were out there picking up that stuff. So I just wanted to tell them thank you. Also, before, I think this was last year, we had a discussion about, when the server goes down, the phones go down too, because they are connected to the internet. So I don't know if we need to look into something, because nobody can call in, and I doubt anybody can call out. So when that happens, everything goes down, and I don't know what the alternative would be for that. Would be to have a direct line or something, but I think that needs to be looked into, because that cuts off the public from.
Yeah, I'll check into it. I haven't noticed phone disruptions. I have noticed that every once in a while I will send somebody an email and they get it a few days later.
Right.
I haven't figured out that
So
particular mystery.
It might be all connected to that.
Okay, all right, I'll check into it.
Also, I don't know that if people have noticed, but that the Hood River County is talking about a food and beverage industry tax to fund search and rescue, and I really want our town to be involved in this discussion. I want to be informed. I want to know. I want to be in the loop on that information, because that's going to affect. I want to know what it is. I want to know what their intention is. Because I don't know. I just want to know. I just don't want to be left out of that discussion.
I'll deal with it directly myself.
Okay. And then also, we got our budget books, and it was stated that the cost of living and merit increases were going to be budgeted in, and I don't know if that's a discussion that we as a council, because it has to do with this resolution 1144, that it was, a cost of living increase of 3.6%. Okay, that was authorized, but it changes every year, right? It's
Well,
not
that was the problem I had, and
Yeah.
that's why I kind of budgeted on the, to kind of cover it. It was supposed to be for, I think, like 2008, 2009, and it had a cost of living increase. And then it said at the bottom of the resolution that this will continue unless revoked by the council. And I was sort of kind of at a loss. It was budgeted for 1 year, but then it said it was continuing in infinity until the council stopped it. So what I did is I budgeted in essentially a combined merit and cost of living increase that was tracked to the CPI for what it is now at 3%, just as a placeholder. So it's kind of, it's up to you to do whatever you, as a budget committee and a council, to do whatever you want.
Okay.
I think the CPI right now is 1.6 to 1.8, and so the balance of it, which was like 1.2, was merit.
So I guess I'd like to see that as a discussion item or decision to be made at the next council meeting, since we'll be getting into the budget process.
And will be actually, the budget committee is this Wednesday, so
Yeah.
it's already going to start. I'm just so you know, I'm collecting comments from individuals, from the council and from the committee to bring back, because as a committee you need to make decisions on what do you want, not only what you want to do, but what information do you want us to provide. Whatever exists, we'll give you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Don?
I just have a comment on what, excuse me, what Kevin just mentioned, and I just received this notice today also from CGRA. I'll just read one paragraph of it. The college nationals are coming to the Northwest. The Columbia Gorge Racing Association is proud to have been selected to host the 2011 Intercollegiate Sailing Association National Championship starting May 22nd and continuing through June 1st. We're working hard to put together a memorial event for the 300-plus sailors, coaches, parents, journalists, and friends expected to converge on Cascade locks next month. It's a very special opportunity to showcase the spectacular sailing qualities of the Gorge and the high caliber of the Northwest sailing community. And like we mentioned before, CGRA has very few members, so if there's anyone interested in helping out, we got a lot of jobs that people can volunteer for, and this is something that CGR didn't budget for because they just got this. So we're trying to raise some money, and I'll be talking to a few people to try to help. But I'll leave some copies of this with Kathy. But it's a pretty big event, and they didn't really receive any notice. They applied for it, but really didn't think they would get it. So it is a pretty good opportunity to get some people in town. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, John. I'd just like to reiterate what people have already said about Sacagawea statue and Seaman the dog. To me, they're really fantastic pieces of art. They're really neat down there on the turnaround at the port, so I just wanted to say that. And that's all the comments that I had right now. So next, we will go to staff reports. Report on the 911 FEMA communications grant. Richard?
Yeah, I promised I was going to bring back a status report to you. Unfortunately, at the time I did it, I didn't realize that the fire chief was going to be out of the state for Easter with his family. So what I'd like to do is just provide you the information, and I'm going to have him at the next council meeting to discuss it and answer questions. And if you have any questions in advance you want to shoot to me, please do. Yes?
At the very end of this, it says that cost of maintenance, the 5-year maintenance contracts cost $30,000. I'm assuming that's for all 5 years. Is that for all 5 years or $30,000 a year? And it says that it was paid for in the grant 5 years worth. So my question is, what's going to happen after 5 years? How are we going to, what is going to be the cost of that maintenance contract, and how is that going to be paid for?
I'll find out. I think part of the reason was that when it says maintenance contract, it's basically to make sure that the contractor, make sure that everything works for the 5 years afterwards, and they're obligated to take, that was built into it to make sure it was almost like a performance bond, but not quite. So I would assume that after the 5 years, after the warranty, I guess that's the word I was looking for, the warranty period is over, that we wouldn't have any ongoing cost other than, the normal replacement. But this was actually a warranty contract, as I remember, but I'll check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, because it also states there that the county, current county rate of maintenance is $30,000. So does that mean without this, they're already paying $30,000 a year in radio maintenance?
What does that mean?
That's how it looks to me.
I'll find out. Like I said, as far as I know, it was built into the original contract
For
$30,000 for the additional 5 years to warranty the system, and that they would be, that's what that money would be for. But I'll.
So part of what we want to know is once that warranty's done,
What happens?
what appears to be, what's their estimate of yearly cost of maintenance?
Okay.
And what there is, let me clarify a little bit because I've read the contract. What there is in the intergovernment agreement contract between all the counties and all the interagencies, there is to be a emergency communication study done. And what that study is it also addresses the maintenance, the training, the upkeep of that facility and what that will cost per agency partner, okay? And so, that, to my knowledge, hasn't been done yet, and so when that report gets done, then we'll have that information. Okay?
Yes. And I saw something here, it gave a date that it is actually running now, is that?
Yes, and we're, that'll be part of the update. I mean, it's fully operational. And the couple of bugs that they had in it, they fixed, and the question is now going through the punch list to accept the system. So that's the next step, then it goes into the warranty period. So we should be right up to doing the punch list and the acceptance of the system probably before the next council meeting, so I'll have Jeff talk about that.
And that's when the county will pay for their share, their portion of it?
Yes, everybody will pay their share, including the county.
But right now, though, we put in $1,200 for our radio, right?
Right.
So we've got close to another $1,000 then from project overruns. So that being shared $6,200 or $6,300. So we're right now gonna throw another close to $1,000 into this thing.
I think there's a different percentage. I think the county gets a major portion of that, and then it gets doled out to the rest of the fire departments. I'm not sure, yeah.
I don't know, but I'll have Jeff answer that.
The biggest portion goes to the 9/11 office.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that it? Okay, next we'll go to 12, the televised workshop session, the future of broadband and Cascade locks. Did you want to speak, or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Initially, I don't know if any of you were affected recently, but there's been customers affected by the broadband service not working properly here. I know that the city, Tracy's been working very diligently and hard to keep that service up and running. The thing that I see with the future of the broadband services is I look at our broadband service as one of the few businesses that the city has that brings in income, okay? And I've talked with Tracy, and you know, a lot of this system is very old, very antiquated, and it's, you know, it's still working, but it's going to become extremely obsolete. And my feeling is that it was brought to my attention that just across the river is I guess there's 5 main trunk fiber optic lines in the United States. And one of them is just right across on the other side of the bridge. And that we could tie into that fiber optics, bring it through, bring it to the city, and probably take it all the way down to the industrial port so that the city would be able to enjoy the ability to sell customers throughout the city broadband at such a, I think I've been told it's like 500 megabits. Is that how it's pronounced? Is it megabits or megabytes? So, which is unbelievably fast. So it would give, first of all, going down to the port area, it would give the port area the ability to tap into that we might be able to generate other big businesses coming in, kind of like what Google did coming into the Dalles. They would have virtually live streaming internet service. And so on that same token, it would be available for everybody within the city. And so we would be able to start selling that to residents instead of residents, including myself. I currently go through CenturyLink for my broadband or my DSL service. So if the city had a better system, I would transfer over to it. And I think that more people would do that in the same token. I've been told, and we would have to do more investigation, but I've been told that approximately it would cost $70,000 to upgrade our system to fiber optics through the whole city. So I think for the livelihood to be able to continue to grow and to be able to make money and to be able to maintain that service for many years to come, I feel personally that this is something that we should really try to figure out a way to endeavor to do this. There's a possibility that we could take a loan from City Light to pay for it. Or there's also a possibility that City Light could pay for it and then they could lease it to the city. I think ideally the best thing is the city would be to continue to own it and then we could pay people who work for City Light to maintain it as necessary.
Right.
Yes, Tom?
So what's the difference, and I don't know anything about this stuff,
Right.
but we have fiber optics and the school's tapped into it down here, by the hardware, apparently Shahala's tapped into it, so if there's fiber optics here, what's the difference between that fiber optics and this fiber optics?
The main difference.
It's already in this town.
The difference is, you have a company by the name of Sprint that owns that fiber optics, okay? And to be able to use that fiber optics, you have to pay rent, or whatever you want to call it. You have to pay a subsidiary, you have to pay money into Sprint to be able to use that. And so you'd end up eating up your costs trying to pay them to try to make money, whereas if you do it initially, then you always have that service.
So you're saying what the city will do is they buy a trunk off the one across the river, bring it in, the city brings it in, and then they become the seller of the fiber optics here.
Correct.
And they pay whatever they gotta pay for the.
Whatever it is to
service
tap
of
into that
trunk
through,
over there.
yeah, Tom.
I don't know if
Why
you,
does the city do that to Sprint? Or is it two different prices?
Well, you'd be in competition. Sprint would be wanting to do the same thing.
Okay.
remember,
Is the
Tom,
person want to?
when we had the moth races?
Yeah,
And we put, and I don't know much about computers either, remember we put the repeater out on the shed down there? And we picked this up from Stevenson.
right.
And we put the moth race over their system, and we sent it worldwide. We couldn't do it with the ports or the cities. It wasn't powerful enough to do it.
So we
Even
don't-
Sprints, we couldn't even do it.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Kevin?
I don't know.
My understanding is that's what's called a backbone fiber on the Washington side of the river. It's, like he said, I believe I hadn't heard that number, 5 major lines that cross the United States. That's one of the main backbones of the internet right there. If we go through Sprint, we're gonna rent their line to get our data to Hood River, and then they're going to transfer it over to the backbone fiber. But we're gonna have to pay them for every bit of bandwidth that we use in getting it up there. The gentleman from
Sawtooth.
yeah.
Saw.
He's the one that came over, and he's the one that put the whole thing together, yeah. And he was talking about, he said 1,000 megabits a second wouldn't be a problem. And that is part of the problem the city has right now, is we only have a 10 megabyte connection to Stevenson. So the entire town, using the internet all at once, is restricted to that amount of bandwidth, as opposed to the fiber, one customer could use 1,000, and he said, basically unlimited, the amount of bandwidth that would be available by being connected directly to the backbone.
So we can eliminate the middle.
It's the shortest route too. Instead of going, Sprint's line runs the freeway to Hood River and then crosses over. And why rent that space from them when we could own it ourselves for, it seemed like a pretty reasonable amount with the bid that he came out with. And I believe the number he came up with was to install the fiber. Connecting to the fiber is a different operation. We could connect the head end of the cable to it and do away with the bottleneck we have going across the river, which would increase our bandwidth, but getting it to individual houses is another step in the process.
Lance?
So we've talked about this a couple times over the last several years, and usually revolving around budget. When we look at the numbers and it becomes clear that the cable system doesn't really quite break even, but the little bit of profit we make off of the computer system balances that out, so we're barely flat, sometimes yes, sometimes no, when you combine those two systems. And at the last time this discussion came up, we postponed any future decision about, we didn't postpone future decision, we postponed the decision about what to do with our cable TV and internet service, because we went out for a grant to try to pay for exactly this program you're talking about. It's getting a fiber optic line across the bridge and then just straight down Forest Lane, basically. That was the plan at that time. It was gonna be, I think it was $100,000 was the grant we were asking for. Maybe it was 200, remember, Ken?
225, I think.
Was it okay. So, maybe the price has gone down.
I discussed it directly with the gentleman from Sawnet. He said 75 for us to do it ourselves.
For us to do it ourselves.
That's what he said.
Then the grant was,
For hiring all the work done. Having a contractor come in and do everything.
Get it to the houses.
because part of the grant was we had talked about whether we were gonna offer in-kind labor as our
Sure.
contribution to the grant and so on. And really that's, to me, that's been, as the system continues to, stay the same and all the other technology in the world continues to improve, this seems to be the most realistic, most attainable solution to saving this service, if it's a service that our city wants to continue to provide. And so, as far as connecting from the main line to individual people's houses or businesses, the comment at that time was, you don't even necessarily need to have fiber lines because you have the bandwidth just down a main line down Forest Lane that you get plenty of speed using the existing lines. So just that main run from the bridge to the industrial park really incrementally now. And we had sort of brainstormed some ideas. Well, how could this also help out the cable TV system? Because that's also a system that's not as profitable as the computer system, and it continues to stay the same, maybe even degrade, while technology everywhere else, continues to improve with high definition and on-demand systems and things like that. So it seems like really the best hope for preserving this service, if it is something that we want to preserve. But I think you make the right point, how do we pay for that? Because we're certainly not generating the kind of funds that can pay for that kind of improvement off the top, and we can't increase rates without a vote. So
Now,
how do we pay for it, I think, is a big discussion to have.
right. Now, Tracy also told me that there's a possibility that they could hang all the fiber optics, and that we just have to hire somebody to make the connections. So there's another avenue that we might be able to possibly save some money. I really think there's not too many things that really generate a lot of income for the city, you know what I'm saying? And I think this is one, because if you get up to 1,000 megabytes, you're going to have live streaming. You could run TV over those same lines. You just have to contract through whatever TV services, or I'm sure you could do the same thing over because you can get everything over the over fiber optics now. So I'm pretty sure that might be able to be done too. That's just something we'd have to check into. But that's my feeling, that we really should try to get this, because if we lose that, that's even more money that we're gonna lose out of our general fund. That money that those services generate. And I think what's gonna happen is people are slowly gonna start not being able to use their computers because it's too slow, because everything's expanding ahead of us, and we're gonna start losing more and more customers. Yeah, it's happening right now, and I think if we don't get on the ball and do it, we're gonna be left behind. And so, I guess I'd like to just take a consensus that we have Richard and Tracy look into whatever possibilities we can do to do this system and what it might cost, to see if we can get it done. Don?
I think we have to get some information to find out if we're gonna keep it, we have to fix it. We have to decide, are we gonna keep it? And if we are gonna keep it, we have to fix it. We have to change it. I don't think we can continue the way we're going, because people are leaving monthly.
Well,
We have to decide which way we have to do something. Either say it's all gone, or we're gonna try to find some way to fund it, I
Kevin?
think.
Yeah, and I really believe that this puts us ahead of the curve. This particular system would put us ahead of the curve, and it would give us the opportunity to offer a service that you can't get anywhere else. You can't get that type of bandwidth over wireless or over the 4G phones or any of the other stuff that's currently coming onto the market. You would be able to stream live TV or whatever you want to do. It would be a service that isn't really available in that many places to have direct access to fiber, and I think it would help our town. It would give us an opportunity at the industrial park to market something, to have direct access to the backbone fiber. When we started the internet service, Nicole, I think, took charge on that.
David, Richard.
Richard, and he got a grant in 2001, I think it was, somewhere in there, that they established the system. And at that time, a 0.5 megabit per second was broadband internet. I mean, it was a decent system at that time. 10 years later, that's still a 0.5 megabit a second. You get 5 times that on the cell phone. You know, and we haven't invested in improving the service, and we are either gonna have to take a giant step forward to attract the people back that we've lost, to offer something that they can't get anywhere else, to regaining the market share, whatever you wanna call it. Or if we just improve the system up to where it's equal with the other alternatives that are out there, I think we may stay level. We will quit losing people, but I don't think that's really where we want to go. I think we want to go a step above to where we can offer something that's not available everywhere.
The way we could treat it would be the same as we treat water, sewer, storm, which is we do capital improvement plans. We say we know what we're going to do, we know what it costs, and we know how we're going to finance it. I mean, at the end of the day, I certainly don't know enough about it to, talk about it intelligently. But if I also know we hire people to do that for the sewer system and and the water system that know exactly what it takes and how to do it.
And the truth be told, the gentleman from SawNet, he kind of did the whole thing on his own. He put the grant together for us. He brought it over to us and said, hey, here's all the stuff. If you guys want to apply for this, go ahead. And he committed that he would help us in any way he could to make it happen.
Yeah, I talked to him.
Yeah, he seemed like a really good guy.
Yeah.
So we have a consensus then that we want to direct Richard to look into this as a viable that we want to keep our broadband system as a viable system for future and years to come, and that we need to actively pursue getting this completed.
Just at least find out what it's gonna cost, or get an idea.
Yeah. Eva, you agree with that? Lance?
Yeah, and I still think the distinction needs to be made between the cable system and the broadband system. And you just mentioned the broadband system. Typically, we've talked about those two together. And I think there's some reasons why we would continue to do that, but I think that has to be investigated as well. Because the cable system is probably cheaper than you can get cable in any other option, but it's also, it doesn't offer the same amenities as any other cable.
It's $10 cheaper than any satellite dish system you can get right now.
And it's several hundred channels cheaper as well.
Well,
So, I don't watch all those channels either.
yeah.
But, so I think that distinction has to be made, we have to look into.
Well, part of that might get helped out, because I don't know if we can receive some of those stations over fiber optics.
Can you download movies?
Oh, yeah, you can watch movies all day.
I mean, can you download them off the,
Sure.
like you can a satellite?
You can watch Netflix off of it.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, so that's just something, I guess, that we'll find out as we go. You see,
Yeah, but I
Kevin,
guess my whole,
you want to do both?
I think that's something to look into, but I feel like it's something that we definitely have to move forward on, and something that the staff should be doing.
Okay, so let's change the consensus that we will look into upgrading both, okay? But once we get that, then we'll come back and we'll have another discussion on it, okay? All right, so you're good, Eva? Lance? Tom?
Yeah, I'm good in that, understanding that the reason that we do have a degraded system, but I think we keep our customers, and one of the reasons we keep, 23 is the reason we keep customers, and I think that, but still our price is low enough in comparison to what you can get out there on the open market.
Right.
So I think if we get in a situation where we're starting to match the open market and maybe not be able to give the service, then you're in your tough shape. So I mean, that's, you almost have to create, if you're gonna do it, we're there to provide the service they can't get anywhere else. If the service is there.
Right, but I think something to keep in mind, Tom, is just the situation is right now we have a service, okay, that we charge, I think it's $24.95 a month, something like that. Anyway, that service we can always provide, okay? But if we bring in a new service, then that new service will be something that will be available to everybody else as well. So we'll still be able to always offer the one service that we have if people want to maintain that, or if they want to upgrade to something better, then they can pay the additional money, whatever that's established at that time. See what I'm saying?
Well, I'm not sure, it doesn't sound like we can maintain that, though. We're getting to the point where that service is degraded enough to where you can no longer keep it going without adding a bunch of,
Oh, okay.
without adding a bunch of money to it.
I guess I'm not aware,
Yeah, I think
not aware. So that's something that needs to be found out and brought back to us.
Yeah, same, well, that should be part of the.
Well, a lot of the channels are now starting to charge retransmission fees, which adds to our cost for cable.
Which makes it less expensive or less profitable for the city because we're losing
It
money.
doesn't make money right now.
Because we're, yeah,
I
I
think it's good to
understand.
look into this. I mean, it's right there. It's a
Right.
trunk line right there. We're in a good location. We got a bridge we can bring it across, so yeah, I'm good with looking
Okay.
into them.
Kevin?
Yeah, I don't know, well, I understand the correlation between the two. I don't know how expensive it is to transmit the cable channels over a fiber network, or how much upgrade it takes, or whatever.
Yeah.
I certainly would like to see the, both alternatives, I guess.
Right.
But if we can only afford to do the fiber, I still think we need to take care of that. That's a system that's not quite as degraded as the cable is right now. And if we can only do that, then that's still something I want to pursue.
Okay.
Yes.
Don?
I agree with Kevin. I think the fiber optics would help get some business in here. I think it'd be nice to get both, but I think, in my opinion, it'd be the most important, getting the fiber optics for
Okay.
computer accessibility and capacity.
Okay. Well, I agree with all of it. It'd be good to find out about the fiber, the broadband, and be good to find out about the TV cable both, and then we can decide on which one. I definitely think that we have to do the internet, the broadband for internet service. I think it'd be so advantageous for any new industrial things going on at the port, and I think it would bring a lot of people back to our service, which would bring a lot more revenue back to the city. And I think people would be surprised how much faster we'd bring back revenue to the city. And I really think we need to do things that bring money to the city. And it would be a great service brought back to people, because people would go, oh my gosh, you got that much bandwidth? You mean I don't have to wait any faster than that? And I think that would just be an excellent selling point. So I agree also.
Okay.
So Richard, there you go, bud.
You'd have to paint the firehouse.
Yeah.
We can do that on the weekend. I'll bring you a brush. I tell you what, I'll be there as long as you're there. How's that? And I'll bring a chair for you too.
Do we have an executive session?
I don't think there's anything for executive session tonight.
Make a motion to adjourn?
There's been a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Here you go.
Oh, where's that?
Got some use out of it.
Richard, I like this. This is nice. It's nice to see.